I thought it would be simple. I thought I knew the answer. It's only one question. What is your favorite tabletop role-playing game? And isn't it just Dungeons and Dragons? And we're off. The racers take their positions. D&D 5.5 duking it out with Pathfinder. 5e comes up and takes the lead. Daggerheart beats Shadow Dark in the middle. Draw Steel right behind. Nimble exploding from the back. It's 5.5 tops Pathfinder. Neck and neck near the front of the pack and the middle with Daggerheart. Draw Steel. Nimble clawing to get ahead. And what's this? Pathfinder leaps to the lead, but 5e snatches it right back. The finish line is coming up fast, folks. Who will take it? Daggerheart getting another boost ahead of Shadow Dark. Draw Steel. Nimble with Pathfinder nipping at the heels of D&D. 5e! And yeah, 30,000 votes later, D&D is at the top, but so is Pathfinder. And much more importantly, so is Other. Because almost 4,000 people took a little time out of their day, thank you, to write in with a unique response, leaving us with over 800 game titles. So not only did these write-ins add layers of nuance to the games you see here with various editions and versions, but some of those editions and versions were written in so many times that after days of painstaking sorting, they actually broke the order of this top 20. I thought it would be simple. But before we stare into the abyss of those write-ins together to truly answer what is your favorite TTRPG, we must start by assessing who responded to this poll by taking a peek behind the curtain of my YouTube channel. And then I'm gonna rip my freaking eyeballs out next time I see a spreadsheet. So, what kind of people actually voted in this most nerdiest of polls? Whose favorite TTRPGs are we really looking at? Well, because I wanted to maximize the number of complete responses, I included as few questions as possible. Just the big one, plus a single optional question about when you last played your favorite game, but no demographic questions whatsoever. Fortunately, we can assume that most voters found this poll via my own YouTube channel, specifically via this call to action video that I made about it. And according to my YouTube analytics, those viewers consisted primarily of bros, millennials, and Americans. I wonder why. Here on Bob World Builder, I like to think that we're all a bunch of chill dudes, so specifically, that video was viewed by an overwhelming 96% male dudes, 3.6% female dudes, and 0.4% user-specified dudes, which is not far off from my channel's overall viewership data, but it did reach proportionally more bros than usual for some reason. And before you comment like, whoa, 90% bros is normal? Yeah, to my surprise, even Ginny D once told me her YouTube audience data shows like 60 to 70% male. Whatever the case, huge thanks to all the non-bro chill dudes who watch my videos. That means a lot. As for age, the video also skewed towards more elder millennials and younger Gen X than usual for me, perhaps because the Gen Z and boomer dudes saw this video thumbnail and didn't click it because they rightfully don't care about what other people are playing these days. I did put way too much effort into this whole analysis, but again, it is fun for me too. As predicted, this poll was certainly limited to English-speaking gamers, which is also backed up by the video's subtitle data, showing less than 1% of dudes watching in other languages. So same goes here. If English is not your first language, or if you're a spry Gen Z gamer or a potentially less spry retiree gamer, thank you so much for watching. Please represent and sound off down in the comments while I tell you about today's awesome sponsor. Stragovia, an original dark folk fantasy RPG where the forest is alive and every fairy tale is a threat. Like the game's setting, rooted in Slavic folklore but rebuilt with its own mythology, the game itself brings a new take on old-school RPG brutality, a D12 dice pool system that burns away with every roll, every spell cast forms a debt to something, and to quote the free 40-page quick start, the entire land of Stragovia is described by one word: loss. The mood is heavy. The art direction is the most striking I've seen in a while, and guaranteed, every brushstroke painted with human soul. It offers mechanics for breaking taboos of folk tradition, traversing the forest with elixirs that bend reality, historical arms and armor like salt-treated leather to ward the supernatural, and much more flavor with substance. Stragovia is over 400 pages split into the core book and a campaign guide, but don't forget to grab that free quick start through the link below. Alright, now that we have a picture of the average voter, basically me, but a few years older, we can peer into this cool racing bar chart that still took a couple hours to make, even though I learned how to make one for the last video, and we gotta remember two important things. First, while the poll captured an exact timestamp for every vote as it came in, the resulting 27,000 rows of data were too much for this free graphing program, so you're seeing the minute-by-minute totals for every game on the list until right here at the 12-hour mark when I switched to the hour-by-hour totals, simply because voting slowed down and it saved like hundreds or thousands of rows in the spreadsheet, but the final counts are the same. However, the second most important thing to remember about this cool graph is that by the end of it, third place went to other, because thousands of people wrote in roughly 1,000 game titles, and therefore some of those write-ins got enough votes to rank in the true top 20, but those aren't shown here because this cool top 20 graph only included the titles of games that were listed on the ballot. So we are going to talk about that true top 20, and in a minute we'll briefly review how I decided what to put on the ballot, because it's a huge part of how this poll could have been more simple, but was actually a way more complex job than I could have anticipated. For now, we discuss the main patterns of this top 20. Take a look, what do you see? Okay, pencils down. What I see is an obvious winner circle of D&D 5e, Pathfinder, and D&D 5.5. Then a big jump down, cutting the votes in half to our cluster of fantasy heartbreakers. Daggerheart at the front, Shadowdark and Drawsteel basically tied in the middle with Nimble in the back, and this group blends almost seamlessly down the curve into Call of Cthulhu, DC-20, Savage Worlds, Vampire the Masquerade, Traveler, Blades in the Dark, D&D 3.5, DCC, Lancer, GURPS, Mothership, and Old School Essentials. A pretty good mix of both fantasy and non-fantasy RPGs. Still, with 12 of this top 20 being D&D or its lovingly made imitations, it appears that we dudes are biased toward D&D style fantasy, which also makes sense because that's practically the only genre of TTRPGs I really talk about on this channel. And yet, are we dudes biased, or are we just correct that D&D and its lovingly made imitations are in fact the wider community's favorite TTRPGs? When we turn to our old friend Google Trends, it's really obvious that D&D as a whole is the most popular TTRPG by a long shot. The next most popular game, Pathfinder, is barely visible on this linear scale because that system is a bona fide outlier, far more popular than any other TTRPG, despite countless videos we all occasionally see about its inevitable or previously transpired downfall. Ain't it crazy how D&D is over like every 3 weeks for the last 3 years? So therefore, yeah, D&D style fantasy is the wider community's favorite, because only when we remove D&D. Wow, Pathfinder has this huge jump thanks to D&D's open gaming license scandal right at the beginning of 2023. And when we remove Pathfinder, man, even the Daggerheart spikes are actually really dwarfing us here. So now we can clearly see the popularity of games like Call of Cthulhu, Blades in the Dark, etc. Low-key, this makes me think there is a market for more YouTube videos about games like Call of Cthulhu and Blades in the Dark, at least as much as Drawsteel and Shadowdark it seems, but I'm a fantasy dude, so if you want those videos, you gotta be the channel you wish to see in the world. And dang, I really wish we got some more airtime out of this cool graph, so before we lose our minds reading the Necronomicon of write-in RPG titles, we're just gonna watch it play out one last time. I will remember you. Okay, that's enough. 3,759 people wrote something in the other option on the poll. But of those nearly 4,000 people, only 2,878 wrote what I've classified as authentic write-ins, where they actually voted other and wrote in a game that was not on the ballot, or they voted from the ballot and then also used the write-in space to just specify an edition or version of their favorite game, versus the roughly 1,000 inauthentic write-ins that I sorted through, where people voted for their favorite game on the ballot and then just wrote in their second favorite, or a whole list of games, or they wrote a spicy little message about why this poll is flawed and bad and dumb. So besides the handful of Pathfinder messages, my favorite kind of those write-ins were the dozen or so people who were astounded, just appalled, flabbergasted even, that I forgot to include insert lesser known TTRPG here, because it's actually so popular or foundational, or most of the time they didn't even include a reason why it should be included, and that should have been a hint. Because yeah, I don't want to like poo-poo those games, but the most write-ins that one of them got was like 50? That's not nothing, but it's like a restaurant worth of people who consider it their favorite game out of 30,000 people. And this feels like a nice time for Editor Bob to show you this cool product I saw while skimming Facebook Marketplace. D&D Pathfinder Core Rulebook and Bestiary. This isn't a store selling both games, this is just a dude in the real world selling his Pathfinder books and understanding that most people can't tell or don't care about the difference between Pathfinder and D&D. Owlbears, Fireball, Dragons, D20, you're good. So while most people wouldn't care about this poll either, and we will detail which totally distinct edition of Pathfinder got the most write-ins, I think a few folks needed this reality check from someone besides me. So please note, I created the ballot based on my own bookshelf, and then on 120 write-ins from my patrons, then by checking any awards, then by checking the top 50 games on Start Playing for the last few years, the games that like people are actually playing together online all the time. And then I ran it by a few of my Dungeon Tuber pals, and it was fine. So I apologize if your favorite TTRPG was not on the ballot, but also, please be more of a chill dude about it, because you're making me not a chill dude about it. We ended up with over 800 titles. Can you name over 800 TTRPGs? No, you can't. So I wish fewer people had expected me to know over 800 TTRPG titles. Anyway, if we don't chill down now, we're really gonna freak as we get into the list. Because in order to make the list, I had to decipher those remaining 2,900 write-ins through every spelling error, every unknown acronym, every game that was on the ballot, but they missed it and wrote it in anyway, so then I had to go back in and add it to the main count for that game, and every other game that I never heard of or vaguely knew about, but still don't really know whether or not it's part of the same overall system as some other game somebody else wrote in and should or should not be lumped together. Quick example. 3D&T and 3D Victory are two RPGs that you probably never heard of, and I hadn't either. They only got 5 write-ins between them, and this is not one of the games that they were like angry I didn't include. Nonetheless, I was able to figure out that 3D&T and 3D Victory are part of the same system because, conveniently, they were right next to each other alphabetically, and because having even a pair of write-ins each helped them stand out among the other 2,900 write-ins. So I noticed the pattern, Googled it, confirmed it, and then combined those two games into one entry on the list. But there are definitely dozens of other games on the list that comments will say I should have combined or that I should have kept separate, and they might be right because there's no exact science to this sort of classification. And apparently that really bothers me too. And I know Blade Runner, Alien, Forbidden Lands, and more are versions of the Free League Year Zero engine, but they seem like distinct enough games that I kept them separate. I put together Apocalypse World with Powered by the Apocalypse, but I kept that separate from Apocalypse Keys, which I never heard of but seems to be its own distinct game, and I didn't lump in Avatar: The Last Airbender or Thirsty Sword Lesbians, which I know are PBTA, but are also absolutely their own distinct games from Apocalypse World. I genuinely started to question reality when I hit this write-in. Disappointed you didn't bring up Car Lesbians, the hit game where you have a car and are a lesbian. After reading a few thousand write-ins, that sounds like a totally real, actual game, especially next to other write-ins like Cottagecore Lesbian Goblins Destroy Capitalism. One write-in just said, Cruz of Strahd. And that one is almost definitely a typo from a very confused voter. I don't know anything anymore, but it really made me laugh, so I left that one in. And I did combine all the World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness games because as far as I know, they all use sort of similar rules and are definitely the same sort of genre, right? Just like sexy vampires. I combined all the Warhammer games for the same reason. Not the same reason. They're not sexy vampire. There probably are sexy vampires somewhere in Warhammer. Overall, this was a huge undertaking, and I wish I gave myself more time to publish these results. So we'll definitely do things a little differently if we repeat this poll next year. But without further ado, from the ballot of 140 game titles up to over 800 titles, the true top 20 is Dungeons & Dragons 5e 2014. And there's probably a lot we could say just about that ranking in another video. 2. Pathfinder. And don't worry, we'll talk about the additions in a moment. 3. Dungeons & Dragons 5.5e 2024. In third place now that we've removed Other. Then, same as before, Daggerheart, Shadowdark, Drawsteel, Nimble, but what's this? Call of Cthulhu followed by World of Darkness / Chronicles of Darkness. Yeah, there were 18 different games from that series. Here they are on the screen, not even splitting them into numbered editions or anniversary editions or whatever. They still really added up. Then after DC20, Savage Worlds, Traveler, Blades 3.5, Warhammer also joined the top 20, just ahead of DCC, GURPS, Lancer, Mothership, and Old School Essentials. So when it comes to Pathfinder, and I promise I didn't mean to make you guys wait this long, but unfortunately, I don't think the write-ins specifying 1E versus 2E are an accurate representation of which edition people favor, because a significant number of those Pathfinder write-ins said something along the lines of, the poll only has 1E, so my vote is for 2E, as if the word Pathfinder only means first edition. Maybe that's the culture of this community. I did not know that. Therefore, I think that Pathfinder players who favored 1E were less likely to write in and specify their choice. That said, the Pathfinder write-in split was 1E, 32 write-ins, 2E, 174 write-ins, remaster, 8 write-ins. And at long last, what about insert lesser-known TTRPG? Rather than just reading the ranks of over 800 game titles, or even showing them all on screen, because that too would be frustrating and complicated, I encourage you to check the link below, where I've made the final spreadsheet public for anyone to view as promised and to use however you wish. And I even added a sheet with my final list in alphabetical order, so it should be easy to find your game's title with its number of votes and its rank, which you'll notice is only out of 399 because about 400 of those game titles I painstakingly sorted only got a single vote. Look, I had fun. I had fun here. This wasn't as torturous maybe as I'm making it out to be. The hard part is just needing to crunch the creation and editing of this video all into less than a week, because that's what I do for some reason. Maybe I need to do every other week for some videos. And one more important note, if you're gonna use that data, I captured that data 3 days before the poll officially cut off votes, so the numbers might have shifted a little bit, but I can pretty much guarantee the rank order is going to be about the same as whatever your output of the results are when you see it. So, another thanks to all ye dudes who voted in, who wrote in, and who gave nice feedback on how to improve. Keep building.